Alright guys, welcome back to a refreshed midweek episode with just vanning it on some tips and tricks on caravanning. We're happy to be back, so let's jump into it.
Proudly brought to you by iCheck TPMS. Right, so we're back in 2024.
Hello,
and
how are ya?
We've got a cup of tea and a couple of tips for you.
Behaving myself.
Behaving yourself tonight. So this episode, we're going to revisit some of our biggest mistakes that we've experienced or made over our 4+ years of caravanning.
Ooh.
There are plenty, and ironically some are very recent, because as you travel you don't learn until you make the mistake, and those are ever happening. So we'll head into the first one for you. And yes,
Sue's done a great job. She's got it all written out again.
I've got another list for Derek. I've got another script for Derek.
There we go.
But please do share with us in the comments if you've experienced the same mistake or a similar mistake, or if you've got anything you can share with any of the viewers on how to avoid mistakes you've made on the road. So first up, we're going to hit this hard and fast.
Oh, shivers, here we go. This has happened. Oh, am I talking?
Yeah, so this section is called toilet trauma.
Toilet trauma. Now,
we love toilet talk.
we've heard a few people of doing this, and I don't know how this has happened, because apparently if you don't have the cassette inside the toilet, it shouldn't close. But anyway, we're on Palubi Beach, and I've taken the cassette toilet into town to Streaky Bay, and I dumped the toilet, do the rubbish run, and would go to the groceries, and I would come back, and I think the weather was good that day, and I just forgot about it, went out in the boat, came back, got on the beers, and the next minute, a few hours later, someone said, mate, there's water coming out of where your toilet should be, and didn't put the cassette back in, and Sue had gone to the toilet. Now, unfortunately, it was a number 1 and not a number 2, but people that were on the beach with us have actually experienced a number 2, and well, you can imagine the situation you'd be in. So I said to Sue that night, did you not feel like the fresh air?
A draft.
A draft.
I said we're on Palubi. It's a permanent draft.
So my mistake. And then another one is the rule in our caravan is I take the cassette or and go to the dump point or whatever the case is, and Sue, when I put it in, I say, all right, it's in. And what I do now, well, we don't have a cassette toilet, but after that, what I would do is, if I go to the dump point, I'll go put the cassette in the car and I go away. I make sure that when I get back, no one interrupts me, and I just take the cassette and put it back in. But it's Sue's job to put a sachet in the cassette from inside. That's where we stored it.
We used to use the sachets.
Yes. The
little blue sachets. So that was my job. We'd actually use 2. We'd pop 2 in, because we found that was better just in terms of the chemical breakdown and sort of the freshness of the toilet.
I'm happy to report that there was a few instances where Sue had forgotten to put a tablet in that toilet. So you can imagine when I go and dump the toilet, what the smell's going to be like. Not great. So make sure you get into a routine, put in your chemical in the toilet. Now,
put your cassette back, number 1.
Yes.
And put a chemical sachet or chemical in the toilet, number 2.
Yes.
The second one is window wars, or what we're going to term window wars. So over the years, we've had 4 different caravans. We've learned, with regards to the windows, always close your windows if you're going out for the day. The reason for that is you don't know what the weather's going to do while you're away from the campsite. And sadly for us, we were actually in Townsville the first time this happened. We had left the windows open. We popped out. I can't recall where we popped out to. We were probably gone a couple of hours. and during that time the wind picked up, including I think it was 60-kilometer wind gusts. Because the windows were open, what that did is it damaged the blinds, which were closed, and we had those sort of cardboard concertina blinds, so it actually ripped them. And we had to basically replace all of the blinds through insurance when we sold that caravan. So top tip, make sure you close your windows. Another tip, and something that we were told by one of the caravan manufacturers we've worked with, is make sure that when you are traveling, your windows are closed and your blinds are open.
Yeah, you separate them. It takes it stops the tension. So the windows sort of work on like or what I think is like a tension. So you slide up, you slide down. That's why they're quite stiff.
Both ways,
and then when you travel, just leave them both up so that this hooks up onto here and vice versa. I think that's quite a big hot tip, that one. Yeah.
And our third tip with regard window wars is actually around those cardboard concertina blinds. So we've had them in 2 vans. We've had 2 vans with a cardboard concertina, which is sort of those V-shaped ones.
2 vans with this.
With this. Now, top tip, if you are buying or building a new van, I would highly recommend that you do not put the concertina windows in or blinds in. The reason for that is you cannot clean them, or I don't know of any way to clean them. They will get dirty, dust, dirt, particularly the ones behind your kitchen area, because you're obviously, you know, cleaning dishes, you're working with food products. And I have researched and Googled my life away when it came to cleaning those blinds.
It just
could not
You can
find
try
a
wipe
solution.
them, but it just didn't work.
They say you can dab them with a sponge with like a little bit of just your normal dishwashing liquid, but wring out the water. But in all honesty, pretty much tried everything. Whereas with these blinds, they are actually wipeable. You can take a damp cloth, obviously wring as much water out as possible, and you can just wipe them down. So much easier.
All right, next one. Bogging battles.
Bogging battles. This is your area of specialisation, love.
We go. I can put my hand up for this one. We've been to some creek sort of camping, beach camping, and you've just got to be wary of this. This is not like we went up. If some of you may have seen, just outside of Ely Beach, we went onto this private property, and we wanted to get down onto this riverbed. It was a really hot weekend. We were there with some friends, and we decided to try and go down onto this riverbed, and we got bogged for over 5 hours with our rig, and there was nowhere to turn around. Got a tractor out eventually to get us out, but it was pretty wild. So
it was wild.
It
was hot. It was 40 degrees plus.
Yeah.
At the time, so I mean, a bogging's stressful enough.
When we go to these places, just you got to be sort of careful as well, I suppose. Like, we're all trying to get a nice free camp along a creek or something, so just be wary of that. Like, that was most probably a bit silly of us, but we didn't. I did go down and have a look, and didn't think it was going to be that bad. We had just done the Cape, and I thought I was a little bit, most probably a bit cocky when I did that, but 5.5 hours later, and we got a tractor to get us out.
Fantastic hosts.
Yeah.
And thank heavens they had a tractor and they were on a farm to actually pull us out, because I thought we were going to retire on that creek bed. I thought there was no way
Sue kept saying that it's just going to be left there. We could get the car out, but not the whole rig. The next one is this happened to us on Waralty Beach, and I'm pretty sure it can happen to other people, not necessarily on a beach. But we used to have the jockey wheel we had at that time had the wheel at the bottom. We changed that out, and we eventually got one that's just a stand on the bottom of it. And there's a few reasons, but if you have the jockey wheel with the wheel on it, what happened on Waralty Beach, because we didn't have, and this is the whole point about the airbags thing as well, we try to get the caravan up onto a ramp so that we could try and level the caravan out. And then when I went to go and take off the van off the car, it rolled forward, and I had these blocks of wood, big sleeper cut, and what happened, it just rolled and the jockey wheel went straight into the sand, and it obviously dropped, and you can't wind it up. If we had to dig, put legs down, dig, put legs down, and then try and build it up to get that jockey wheel to come back up and on there. So I'm going to drop something on the screen here that I recommend with the wheel. I picked it up from Road Tech Marine, I think it was, and it's a little black thing, and it's got a hollow in it where the wheel can sit in, and it can't really, and it's like a rubber.
Yeah.
So it won't really slip, and just, you know, things like that. And we actually used that a lot. And then when I got the stand, well, the stands don't really move as easily as having the jockey with a wheel on it. And then another idea that someone said to us and reached out to us has said that before you take leave one chain hooked to your car, so when you come off, if it goes back, the chain will, it'll catch the chain. Gives you some time to fathom out what's going on, and all you do is you back your car up a bit, and then you can undo the chain. Yeah. So those are like just some things. And obviously if you're going on to do any beach, any off-road, or up on creeks, let your tyres down, walk it first, have a feel, and watch the tides on beaches. We use Willy Weather. It can tell you exactly how much tide's going to be coming in and how far you need to park up the beach. And if you're camping on a riverbed, please guys, like we were told, and people reached out to say that even though you're on a river creek 200 kilometers up the road, if it's raining, that creek will rise because the water's coming down. So just these small things that you've got to think of,
and that you learn along the way through making the mistakes. So that actually brings us quite nicely onto the next one, that point you mentioned about the tides, because the next one's called water woes, and we've had a few of them in our time.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So one of the biggest ones that Derek just mentioned is make sure that you do check the tides if you are waterfront camping, and make sure that when you do park up on a beach, you're above the water line. So again, this happened to us on Wirralty. We seem to get into a bit of trouble on Wirralty.
First time on Wirralty. Got woken up at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and the water was right up to the door, and we still had about 2 hours of tide left. So the water would have just come under the van, and so you don't really want to be doing that. So just when you arrive at a beach, especially a beach, have a look at where everyone else is parked, have a look at what's going on, check the weather, and try and park as far up the beach as you can, and have a look at the tide, the current tide. When you arrive at the beach, you can see how much space you got, where the tide is, it's going out, coming in, is it half tide, or it's, you know, that'll give you some sort of idea. Also, just remember, I don't know, but if you camped up on the beach and that wind does pick up, the tide generally can push a little bit higher because you've got waves. It may cause some waves, and they wash up. So just be careful. We're always checking that when arriving on the beach.
And it's quite easy just to fall into a habit. What happened with us was we pulled onto the beach, everyone was already parked up in a line, so we just parked up in the same line without thinking, where you've got to actually stop and think when you're parking up. The next one around water is, and I know a lot of people, when I say a lot, probably 3 or 4 travellers that this has happened to, and you'll probably share in the comments it's happened to you, but a lot of travellers actually pack things in their sink when they travel, whether it's the kettle, the toaster, or cleaning materials, etc. And what happens when they're travelling, particularly on corrugations, is those things can actually bump up in the sink and hit the tap up, which turns the water on. Now, if you haven't turned your water pump off, essentially you've got running water in the van. And we've been with 1 or 2 travellers where we've actually seen water cascading. Yeah,
because that will jump up. And I mean, it's very easy. I often forget to turn the water pump off, and unfortunately it hasn't happened to us. But, you know, if I don't learn, when it bumps up, that sink will fill, and then it'll start overflowing, and you're going to get inside, you're going to have a wet van, and yeah, the water's going to get into your joinery. Yeah, never mind just losing the water, it gets into the joinery. And all that kind of stuff, and then, you know, your kitchen, the cabinetry could start swelling if you have timber furniture. So yeah, just that's a big one actually.
Yeah, it is a big one. And look, we could go on about water. There are so many. Water is such an important thing when you travel. Just plan your water refills as well. Make sure that if you are going off grid, you have enough water, or you know where to fill up with water.
Never pass a dump point. Never pass a water filler if you're off grid. Obviously, if you know if you're going to a caravan park, they generally will have a dump point, and you're going to plug into water anyway. So, but yeah, never. Yeah, we just don't. We just taught ourselves never to go past it. We always check. Oh no, we got enough water. Or we full of water? We don't need water. Oh, diesel don'ts.
These are diesel don'ts.
Obviously, don't run out of diesel. I mean, that's a pretty big one, or fuel, or anything like to do with that, because you know, it's happened. We have never run out of fuel, but we've almost run out of fuel when we went up to Columbaroo last year on the Gibb River Road. We got up there, and unfortunately, I didn't have diesel, and I couldn't make it back to, I think it was Drysdale Station, and we had no choice but to sort of go, and then I had to buy diesel off a range of, I think it was $100 for 20 litres I offered, and they gave it to me. So obviously, yeah, big one, obviously don't run out of diesel. Like I've been told, we carry diesel in our diesel jerry for the diesel heater for the caravan. Again, in the last caravan and the caravan before and the caravan before, and I've been told, I don't know how true this is, but you know, after 12 months, you know, I don't know, possibly not a good idea to run that diesel through the diesel heaters. Maybe in a car or a mower or on the farm might be something different, but we just monitor if that diesel's starting to go, because like we're always trying to chase the weather. We don't like, we want to move with the warmth, but you may come a time where you may need a diesel heater. But I'm just trying to think, and I know what I'll do is I'll just dump that diesel into the car if it gets 8 months, and then when refresh it, fill it up again. So that's something. If I'm wrong, please don't have a go at me. Just drop a comment in below, and it'll put my mind at ease, and I don't have to waste it.
I do believe as well for anyone who's actually carrying diesel as well for their vehicle, and it's weather dependent, because it depends on the temperatures and the conditions.
If it's in the sun, or
correct.
I think yeah. Also, another thing, it's happened to us twice with the cruiser. We carry spare diesel filters on board with it. I've had to change it once before, and I just know how to do it. I think that's something, maybe if you're going to go on a long trip, maybe do some Googling, watch a YouTube video, because you know it's always going to happen when you're that remote and you've got no internet, if you don't have Starlink, and you can't watch a YouTube channel on the side of the road to change it. Have a watch. Possibly try to do one yourself, but carry a spare diesel filter. You pick up dirty diesel, especially if you're going to places like Cape, the Gibb, up the centre, and really remote places. You just don't know what the diesel's like, and we've had to change ours twice.
Yeah, we've been pretty remote when the lights come on, to indicate that the diesel filter needs replacing.
Even though it goes for a service, I just carry it because you can pick up dirty diesel, and it must probably, for people that got fuel, petrol cars, carry a spare fuel filter. I think that's pretty handy. I think mine are $40. They're really small and light. I just stick it in the car and I know where it is. So yeah, that's diesel don'ts.
The next one is towing trip-ups. So I'm actually going to leave this to Derek, because he is the towing. You are the towing authority. All I know is he talks about his bull weight a lot, which I've mentioned before, but one of the big things is bull weight, and that's a mistake that we've made before, or a lesson we've learned before, isn't it? Yeah.
So when we set off on our first caravan, we had no idea about bull weight in some sort of way. Yes, I had this in, I think we have spoken about this in quite a while ago, so we just thought we'll touch on it again. We had towed caravans prior to coming to Australia, and we bought this caravan and we packed it to what I thought was pretty even. Weight across the axles, and then start working your way, no weight at the top, try and keep the weight down, work your way up, and it was that light that we almost rolled on our first trip. We went away to the sunny coast over Christmas. Sue managed to find a hip camp quite close to Noosa actually, and we went, almost rolled it. I got into the sway and I fortunately managed to pull it up at the bottom of the hill. And I reached out to some people, and a bloke reached out to me on Facebook and explained to me He teaches towing and he's been in the industry for quite a few years. And I think I personally think ball weight should be between 7 and 10% of your weight of your van. So if your caravan weighs 3 ton, your ball weight should be between, I don't know the maths, but at 300, 250 to 300, 7%. So for instance, that caravan had a very light ball weight, very badly built caravan. Company was no longer around when we bought it. We've done our research. We tried to do as much research as we could. This is pre-COVID, and we actually ended up having to travel with 40 kilos of play sand in the tunnel boot to try and get that ball weight to at least, we had it at, I think the best I got it was 240. That was 2 water jerry cans on the front, boulder sand. We moved everything to the front of the van. It was that badly built.
Yeah.
So check your ball weight. I bought one of those ball weight scales from Super Cheap, or I know they're not exactly spot on, but it can give you some sort of indication when you find level ground at a caravan park or something, or before you set off. I'll pop it underneath, and you know what, people come around and I say, I've got a ball scale, a tow ball scale, and they use it, and it may be 10 kilos out, but mate, we're not, yeah, you get the idea what I'm going. We're not trying to see if we're underweight, but yeah, tire pressures, big thing as well with that first caravan that we had. I picked it up from the dealer, not knowing anything too much about tire pressures, and that gentleman that helped me out with a tow ball weight, because the van was just all over the shop, it was only pumped to 35 psi. So on the tire wall of your caravan, even your car, there's a cold pressure, max tire pressure on it. Generally, like road tires, I think are 50 psi, and then when you start going to sort of like your all-terrains, they go up. I think mine are 80 psi. So that's cold, so there's still room. So I run 60 psi on this caravan. That first caravan had road tires on it, and we put it up to 50, and it helped heaps. And also it helps with wear and tear on the tires. We picked up our caravan from the dealer in Townsville, and you pick it up from a dealer, and the wheel balancing was out. That when we got to Port Augusta, so we picked it up in Townsville, drove all the way to Port Augusta for the summer in South Australia, and I realised that the one tyre had run bald on the inside completely. So I had to run around, replace a tyre. We actually ended up placing 3 tyres because I couldn't get the same brand tyre, and so that's another thing. If you're unsure, I'd rather get an independent person to do the wheel alignment, or if you're buying a new van, ask them for the wheel balancing paperwork that you can see it's been done, so you don't have to go and spend that money again. It's just, these things can happen.
And we were very lucky on that, because that was actually a single axle van. Yes. And if that tyre was so close to going, I don't know how Derek picked it up. I
just stopped on the side of the road, stretched my legs. We travelled big days, and I just looked back, and it was just bald on the inside, on the driver's side, completely. Great on the outside, and it just worn like that. It was that out, and it could have turned into a worse situation if you had a blowout on a single axle caravan or trailer. It's not going to be pretty.
No. And our final tip is around damage drama. So guaranteed, living on the road, you're going to experience some damage. The lessons we've learned, we've already spoken about closing the windows when you go out, because your windows and your blinds can be damaged. Likewise, you want to make sure, what's the rule?
Roll your awning away.
Roll your awning away. So we have lost an awning. It was actually in the same storm. We lost the windows because the awning was left out.
Right, we were beginners back then.
Well, I'll tell you what, we may be beginners, but we're still making mistakes.
We all do. We're still doing mistakes. We're still learning.
But what you will notice is the awning's always put away. Every night Derek puts the awning away, because you might just go to sleep, the awning's out, and the wind picks up
especially
overnight.
Along the coast, it can just pick up out of nowhere. And I don't know how many times we've had it where it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and you're out there amongst everyone rolling it back in, because you don't want that to get destroyed. So I've just got this thing, I just roll it in. We don't carry anti-flap kits with us, to be honest. We don't stay long enough in places to have anti-flap kits. I've just got these little things that clamp on the side and strap down. They actually work a bomb. And at night, it gets rolled back, and then in the morning, just roll it back out. It's that simple. It's not a, yeah.
And you've learnt you don't enjoy waking up at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
No.
And the other thing we learned, well, always make sure when you prepare the caravan for travel that you've locked your door and you've checked the doors locked. So unfortunately we had an issue with a handle and lock that was a little bit sketchy. And how fast do you reckon we were travelling?
Oh, 90k an hour?
90k an hour down a highway, and the door just flung open and caused a significant amount of damage to the caravan. Now when you damage the side of your van like that, that's a replacement of the entire panel, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how to fix it. We never
get it repaired.
Yeah. Just especially if the door opens. Like this is our caravan this way. If the wind catches it, it just flings it open. If your door opens that way, think of the front of the car that way, the wind's going to push it closed, you know. So, and unfortunately, depending on the type of van build you get, the door might open either way. I've seen doors open the other way, but a front door or a back, it's just the way it gets done. So, yeah, we triple check ourselves now on doors.
Yeah. 100%.
And locks. Just don't trust it.
Yep. And prevention's always better than cure. So I don't know if you want to talk about some of the damage we sustained on the Gibb River Road, because that was probably one of the big sort of damage pieces as well, and that's just because of the conditions we travel in.
Called the old caravan killer for nothing, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We installed the rock tamers on the cruiser in Broome, and I installed them wrong. So I installed them flat, and I've watched some videos that they're actually supposed to curl. That makes sense. They're not supposed to be flat. They're supposed to have and they're not supposed to touch the ground. Well, mine touched the ground the entire way of the Gibb, and obviously just carried on flicking stones up. Didn't damage the front of the van because we had the toolbox, but it just chipped the painted chassis underneath, and we had to basically repaint the entire chassis when we sold. So Stone Stomper, as far as I'm concerned, protects the sort of front of the van, not the chassis, because it just hangs across. So all those stones are still going to flick up onto the chassis. If you have a girl chassis, maybe not so bad, but if you've got a painted chassis,
and
unfortunately,
what about those flaps?
You can try and put as many flaps as you can on underneath. We meet people up in Broome that were just buying rubber and they were just screwing it down, and that must probably will help. But those sort of roads, you're just bound to accept that you're going to get some sort of damage out of it. How big how
severe
that damage is going to be. You got to also remember that tyres will throw stones outwards and then bounce back onto the side of the van. Yeah, you just got to drive to conditions, and unfortunately you're going to have a couple of nicks here and there on these sort of roads. Cape, Gibb, Oodendata, Arnhem. I reckon you're going to get some sort of little nicks out of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the only other damage that we have really sort of sustained on sort of several occasions is just around sort of fittings and fixtures that are plastic on the van. So we've spoken about it on several occasions. It's just always handy to carry a few
extra spares,
so that if you do damage one of those fittings...
Oh yeah, we damaged the T-piece, then we damaged the elbow.
We had a friend whose tap was damaged.
Yeah, the tap broke off. Carry a couple extra spares, so find out exactly what size piping it is. I think Road Tech Marine sell it, your caravan guys sell it. I don't think I've seen it at BCF and stuff like that. So and these, it's always going to happen to you when you're remote. It happened to us both when we were both remote, and we managed. Old Dazza gave us a fitting on the Gibb, but when we were in WA, when the first tank, I lost all that water and I couldn't get water. I had to drive all the way to Exmouth from there and back, which is, I think it was just over 2 hours each way, just to get a $5 fitting. And we had lost the water and we couldn't get water, so we ended up having to pay to go to a caravan park
and have
to get water.
cable ties, because they recommended
Yeah,
that
there's
old
ways,
snake
guys.
tie.
We may actually do another episode on that, on how to possibly, if these things do happen to you, prevention. We can try and explain to you what people have told us to help out with when things like this go wrong.
So that is a wrap. That is sort of lessons learned, mistakes made, everything from toilet trauma through window wars, diesel don'ts, damage, you name it. But if you do have any similar stories, please share it. If you've got any questions, please drop them in below. We'd love to receive them and come back to you.
Yep.
But
guys, thank you. Another midweek episode done. Tick you. Hello. We're going to see you in the next episode, guys. You guys take care and look after yourselves. See ya.
thanks. Bye.